people? Wow, it's really been a long time. I hope you guys are doing well. And yeah, it's been a long time since I recorded a YouTube video. It's like what, a year ago when I actually recorded one and posted it on YouTube. So this is a highly requested video where everyone is curious about how I go about taking my entries, my whole strategy, how I enter trades, how I take profit, you know, and then have losses as well, right? So let's dive into it and let's get things started. So what do I look for? What does Dream Chaser look for on a day-to-day basis, right? It's quite simple, but just a little bit complex, with comes with experience as well, right? Now what do I look for? It's very, very simple. I look out for, first and foremost, the daily cycle or daily trend, right, for the day or intraday session, right? So that's one thing I look out for. Secondly, I look out for liquidity points, liquidity zones. It could be swing highs, swing lows, internal highs, internal lows, all of that. And then I look out for, you could say, supply and demand zones, or OBs, right? Oh, sorry, let me push this thing here. OBs, okay. And then what else do I look for? And I look for, I think there should be one more. Let me see. I think that should be it, honestly. And then market structure, yes. Market structure. So, sorry, market structure. There you go. So, this is all I look out for. Nothing fancy, nothing. I'm not doing anything different from, other traders, right? I mean, every trader has its, own strategy and how they go about it, but I go about it a little bit differently when it comes to the entries, which I'll dive into it, right? So with that being said, let's dive into the charts and then show you what I'll be looking out for, or the trades I took last week, right? So let's start off with this trade here that ended up giving me a $20,000 win, which was quite insane. I won't lie. I was actually aiming for between $15,000 to $16,000, but it made sense for me to let my runners run and then just let it hit the 20k mark. This would have been like a 30k type of win, but I didn't want to get greedy, so let's dive into it now, starting off with the higher time frame, or doing a whole top-down approach, right? As you can see on US30, we are really pretty much bullish, right? Very, very obvious. As you can see, we had that push to the downside, and then obviously we rejected from a higher time frame liquidity, which was from the monthly time frame when the whole tariffs were going on with Trump, and then the other countries like China, Canada, Mexico, all of them countries, right? So looking at the monthly time frame, this was a zone of liquidity where price tapped into. And then yes, there was one more thing I forgot to add, which was fair value gaps or imbalances, right? That I also utilize as well. So as you can see, price ended up tapping into this guy, and then we ended up pushing up, which was quite nice to see, right? I wanted to actually take it from the bottom and just ride it all the way, but it probably, I think, started around Asian session, if I'm not mistaken. At that time, that was what, 1st of April, since we ended up, probably not even 1st of April, probably around, yeah, so 9th of April was when price started to move up to the upside for the most part, right? So now let's go back to our monthly zone. I don't usually look at the monthly all the time because it's the monthly time frame, and I'm more of an intraday type of slash scalper in a way, because there are certain trades where it could hit within an hour, up to 2-3 hours. There are certain trades where it can also hit, for a few minutes, 15 to 30, 45 minutes, and then I'm out, right? So in this case, usually looking at the monthly time frame is more of when there's a new monthly open candle. So pretty much when you're heading towards the end of the month, going into the new month is where I look into the monthly time frame just to have a general idea on what potentially can happen for the next 30 days, right? So in terms of this, obviously we tapped into our liquidity, fair value, we ended up pushing up. Right now, going down to the weekly, obviously in terms of structure, it was pretty much, so obvious. We had a push down, we had a pullback, a higher low, and then a push up, right? So overall, we pretty much bullish, right? Now going down to the daily, okay? So on the daily, obviously we ended up breaking this high right here, okay? So came up, came down again, tapped into certain zones, and then it kept on going higher, right? So not to deviate from this trade that I took, let's just go straight to the point. So what was I looking for at this particular time, right? This was, I think, based on the 4-hour time frame, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is from the 4-hour time frame. So what do we have here? So we had liquidity being swept, okay, which was quite obvious, and then we tapped into this area of demand. And then one tip for you guys in terms of marking up supply and demand zones, right? If you do see, especially on indices, you don't really get clear order blocks in terms of when you see price having a candle like this, and then you have another candle to the upside, right? And then you draw out your order block like this, and then you wait for price to tap into it. And then go away. Sometimes it doesn't look clear like this, right? There are certain points where you have to use wicks as a form of supply demand, which I'm about to show you examples over here, right? So in this case, when you're to zoom in on this side on the 4-hour time frame, as you can see, we had this wick over here. You can say we took our liquidity, we had this demand zone, imbalance right here. We got tapped into it, we ended up shooting up, right? And then price ended up coming all the way back down here again. And then you see we tapped into this wick. This is also classified as an order block, which it's not a lot of people that really recognize that, because it's like price literally just tapped into a random zone, and then price just traded away. But this has meaning behind it for the most part, right? Let me see if I can show you another example with that, so we could just carry on with the thingy. Okay, so this was a clear one, so we all know this one. I want to show you another one here. Okay, there you go. Even here too as well, right? See, we had this wick and we had this push to the upside. As you can see, we tapped into it, went up, but in this case, since we already broke structure to the upside, obviously it needs to come down for more liquidity zones to be taken before going to the opposite side. Let me see if there are more examples down here. Right over here as well, this is a form of demand zone that you could use as well. We got tapped into it. To even have more clarification, this was an internal liquidity that was taken, tapped into that, we ended up shooting up. What else again? What's another zone that we could use? Let's see. Even with this too as well, right? We tapped into it, but since we didn't break this swing high, right? Obviously, when we are pulling back, this demand is definitely not gonna hold. So we reacted, we swapped liquidity to the upside, right? So this was more of this internal liquidity to tap into the imbalance to pretty much look for shorts to the downside, right? So yeah, that's pretty much in terms of how I draw my OBs. There are more examples to it, but this video is gonna take like forever. So let's get right into the trades I took, so it will make sense to you guys, right? So let's look at this. Very, very simple. Not quite simple, but I mean, it was a textbook setup in my opinion. So obviously we took out our swing high right here. After price tapping into our order block, we broke structure to the upside, right? And then what did price do? Price ended up pulling back into, we pulled back into this liquidity right here, right? And then price ended up shooting all the way back up again, breaking structure. So obviously, what are we looking for? We are looking for a continuation, I mean a pullback, sorry, and then a continuation up between this high and then this low, right? Because liquidity was taken to break structure to the upside, right? Now, in this case, what did price do? Price tapped into our OB, which is right over here, as I showed you guys earlier. So this will be a form of an order block. I call that as a B, simply because the B means, you know, price is being balanced. So since the fair value and then the order block is being tapped into, means it's a balanced price. That's why it's called a B, because I've been having a lot of question based on that. And then yeah, that's pretty much it with that one. And then as you can see, we tapped into it, we pushed up, took out liquidity, right? Obviously this should be the demand level that is to break price higher, right? But in this case, since we came into this and we tapped into our imbalance, obviously you could see weakness over here, and then price ended up what? Shooting back down. Now in this case, what are other traders looking out for, right? Now let me even replay this. Okay, what are other traders looking out for? Other traders are looking for, let's say, this liquidity zone, right, to get swept, or you know, get tapped, since there's a fair value here, right? So other traders are looking to short, simply because they'll see this as a market structure break, right? Meaning we are going short because we took out the high. This was a swing high, swing low, and then they're waiting for the pullback and then continuation. But if you had to look at it on a bigger scale, right, this is the swing low. From this low to this high, that broke structure. So anything over here is just internal. You understand? Yeah, just, you know, internal zones that could pretty much fake you out and then go into the intended direction. Because if you think about it, we are pretty much bullish. Okay, so whatever happens here don't mean anything, right? You're still in that, unless this is being broken, is when you could look for a pullback and then a continuation. So in this case, at what time did price tap into this, right? Because timing is also one key factor in trading at all times, right? Which I forgot to add to the list, by the way. Sorry about that. So timing, we tapped into this at 11 a.m., which is my time, CST, New York session, right? So we tapped into this liquidity. This was literally straight from a 1 minute zone, right? So tapped into it. What am I looking for, right? Very, very simple. We have a low, okay? So pretty much price is coming low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and then potential maybe a lower low and then for a continuation. But since we tapped into a point of interest, we want to see a shift to the upside and then take our position, right? So in this case, what do we have? We have a low, lower high, higher low, okay? Now let's see if this is not being breached, right? So we're going to play price, and as you can see, what did price do here? If you had to zoom in, we swept, we went up, right? We went up, swept liquidity, we came down as a higher low, right? We had a new lower high, so we still haven't confirmed this, we still not confirmed with the buys yet because we've not broken structure here. And then we ended up sweeping this internal low here, but this low is still being protected, right? And as you can see, since we swept this low, if price ends up breaking the high, that's literally my entry. That's my entry model. I don't do anything extraordinary, or I don't complicate anything. Majority of the trades I take that you guys see is literally from market structure breaks, right? Very, very simple. Okay, I don't, you know, wait for price to tap into an order block or use what do you guys call it, buy limits for price, because majority of the time in terms of buy limits it might be missed by a pip, and then price might end up flying hundreds of pips, and then you're gonna be pissed, and then you're gonna have FOMO. You end up taking another trade where it don't even make any sense, right? So majority of the time the trades I take are just buy stops. So majority of the time price will trigger me and just move in profit automatically, so I barely see drawdown, right? So if you have to play price, obviously you see with the momentum, price triggered me right over here, went up, retraced a little bit down, right? For a higher low, I guess we tapped into this order block. So if you are, an order block type of trader, this would have been your entry. But since I don't want to get missed on my positions, I take it from market structure breaks and then cover my trades within the recent lows that's available, and just let the trade ride, right? So as you can see, this was actually market close, so this was taken a little bit late. So this was 12 p.m. my time on Friday, so we had like 4 hours left to market close. So I ended up holding the trade overnight, during the weekend, sorry. And then as soon as market opened, price literally just went crazy. So market closed right over here. No, this is 1 p.m. So let's keep playing. Actually, let's go to the 5 minutes so it becomes a bit more faster, so we don't waste time here, right? So market closed, let's see. There you go. So market closed right over here, and as soon as market opened 5 p.m. CST, which is my time, price ended up shooting all the way up into my zone of liquidity at this high, because that was an obvious high that price needed to be taken for the most part, right? So at this point I think I was up roughly $9,000 to $10,000 at that time, and then my full take profit was around 20k. It was around 16, but I ended up extending it to an obvious level of liquidity on the 1 hour, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was somewhere here. Let me keep playing. Hold on real quick. Yes, okay, my zone was literally at the 50% of the daily. Is it daily or 4 hour? Sorry about that. Okay, so this was my daily supply, obviously from this wick. As I told you guys, my order blocks are drawn from wicks, so that was my target. And as you can see, price ended up blasting through that zone, ended up even moving further, right? So that was the trade that I took that made me $20,000, which I shared with you guys on Instagram. And then and then I think that's pretty much it with this trade. That's how I go about my entries. Let's look at the second trade I took, which was, I think, these shorts, right? So let's play price to where I took this trade. So after Monday, price was quite slow, right? It was very, very slow from after Monday. Tuesday was slow, so I didn't take any positions. I ended up taking positions with gold, which was quite nice. But in terms of US30, it was just like dead on. It was dead on what, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think I took this position. Okay, this position was taken on Wednesday into, I think, Wednesday night, because I ended up holding the trade after spread hours, right? So pretty much what was I looking for? Let's go to the lower time frames now. Market open 8:30, which is my time, or 9:30 EST. We tapped into, this was more of a complicated one because it has like so many things going on, and sometimes with the trades I take, it comes with a little bit of experience, but I'm gonna explain anyway, right? So let's go to the 1 hour time frame. Is it 1 hour? Yeah, so 1 hour, as you can see, we, in terms of structure, even though it was a bit messy, right, we tapped into. I was initially looking for buys for sure when price tapped into here, right? I was looking for buys to pretty much go higher, but from the look of things, price could have come into this, you could say 50% of this imbalance or fair value gap, and then price could realign to go up. So that was literally the little target where price could give us that extra push to the downside, right? So we tapped into this OB right here, which is this wick of this candle, right? So going down into the, but before that, obviously we are pretty much doing lower lows and lower highs at this point in this intraday move, right? So low being broken, lower high, tapped into my order block, and then price was breaking structure to the downside, right? So now let's go to the lower time frames real quick. Actually, everything was done on the 1 minute, so it wasn't really a higher time frame type of move. So as you can see, this was my 1 hour supply where price pulled all the way back up after we tapped into that order block I showed you on the 1 hour / 4 hour. I think we pulled back into the OB, we came down, lower high, failing to break the swing high, and then price ended up shooting all the way down. Now we had an order block on the 1 minute. As you can see, we got our reaction to the upside. Okay, at this point, I already knew since price failed to break any highs above here, right? We're gonna continue lower. So it's very obvious that this demand wasn't gonna hold. We just needed a reaction and then take our positions right off there, right? So what do we have here? We pulled back down, right? We had a push to the downside. We had a lower high tapping into the OB, right? And then price ended up pushing down, sweeping internal liquidity, and then it was pretty much ranging, right? So at that point, we had to be a little bit patient for price to do its thing, right? But initially, I was just anticipating that price would take out this liquidity since we have this fair value, right? Act as a form of a market structure break for other traders to take since price failed to break this. But on a higher scale, on a higher time frame, or into the intraday time frames like the 15, 30, 1 hour or 4 hour, price was already showing us that it wants to pull back, right? Or come down for the most part. So in terms of the intraday move, it's pretty much you're looking for sales at the most, for the most part, right? So all I was looking for is sweep of liquidity to the upside, which I think it did. Did it? I'm sure. I think I ended up taking a position like this. Yes, I took the position. Was this taken properly? I probably didn't see it, but I pretty much had my sell stops after we got this pullback, right? Because you could say price ended up taking out this guy, and then we ended up breaking structure here. So obviously you have your sell stops, you got triggered instantly in profit, but this actually ended up coming all the way back up again. Understand? So if you had to play, it came all the way back up to, I guess, sweep this liquidity properly, right, before going back down. So we tapped into it. We're not going a little bit into drawdown actually, so let's keep playing. So as you can see, this was taken properly, right? So we went up, played around a little bit, and then price started to start pushing down, right? So if you had to play price from here, played around a little bit, and then finally price ended up dropping all the way lower into that zone that I showed you on a 1 hour, and then after that was when I think price reversed all the way back up, I think. So yeah, that was the trade on Wednesday. Very, very simple. I mean, not easy, but I mean, you don't have to complicate trading, That's pretty much it with that trade. And then as you can see, we came up, came down, sweat liquidity, went up, went down again, coming deeper into that zone. And then the following day we ended up pushing up. We came into this 1 minute liquidity, came down, swept this low, and then price ended up shooting up. So this was the last trade I took on Thursday, yeah, on US30, right? So this trade I kind of had a late entry because price was moving so fast, right? But I ended up entering based on based on the momentum that we were having, right? So starting off with the 1 hour real quick. So as you can see, we ended up tapping into this high technically, right, into the same area for the most part. Okay, tapped into it. Obviously it's more, you could say, support and resistance type of thing, because you could say price did something like this, tapped into it, and then price ended up shooting up. But in this case, I was just using the high as a form of support and resistance where price could easily reject from, right? And then the lower time frames was also screaming buys anyway. So going back to the lower time frames, obviously this was a bit choppy and a bit hard to trade, so but we still gonna break it down anyway. So let's go to the 5 minute. Obviously we tapped into that zone that I showed you, and then we ended up breaking this high right here. Okay, so this internal high, right? We came up, we came down, we failed to break this liquidity, we failed to take out this liquidity. My price ended up coming up here, tapping into this 1 minute liquidity that was marked right here. It's on the 1 minute, but I don't want to like go back and forth with the time frames, right? But price ended up respecting that. We came all the way back down here again, right? Sweeping the liquidity, tapping into the fair value on the 15 minute, which was nice. And then price ended up started breaking highs, right? So my initial entry on the 1 minute was literally around from this break. Okay, literally from this break. And why this break? That was the only zone that made sense, because with this little PA was a bit confusing to take. So to be a little bit more safer, if it's a bit confusing but the trade is still valid, or the move is still valid to go to the upside, majority of the time I'll take it from the external market structure break on the 1 minute time frame, because majority of the time it's not like you're not gonna really have a larger stop. And there are certain moves where it's a bit large. I could have like up to like 150 points, but this case this was like 96 points, which is not bad to target a good 700 points to the upside, right? So in this case, this was the entry I ended up missing, since price was moving a bit faster. So I kind of missed this move, and then whilst price was like moving higher, I just waited on price to give me a little extra confirmation. But I'm like, what, there are certain trades where it's like, what, fuck it, let's take it. So we tapped into this fair value, right? And then we broke this little high right here, and whilst price broke the high, I ended up taking the trade. And then I was covering. I had a good how many points with the SL? I had a 100-point stop. So at least if price pulls back 100 points, it's whatever, even though the entry was not the best, but I had to give the trade more breathing room to maybe play around before maybe going in my direction. And then there was an OB where I knew price wouldn't pull all the way back to tap into, because we already swept liquidity to go higher. And then with the intraday moves, which just like skyrocketing, it's either dropping massively or going up within that time period, which is New York session, right? So took the trade, and then price ended up just shooting up for Thursday, and I think into Friday was when price hit TP with that too as well. Played around, so this was Friday's PA, and then which I didn't trade on Friday, of course. This would have been another scaling after price taking this, and then this would have been our target in terms of TP, which is our 4 hours / daily high, or previous weekly high, right? So this was the trade, and then that's pretty much it. And market is open now for this week, so we'll see what we have for this week. And that's pretty much it, guys, in terms of the way I take my positions. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys like these sort of videos and you want to see more of these, drop a comment, give a like, subscribe, and If you want to see more of these, as I said earlier, you know what to do. You can follow me on all social media platforms. And yeah, I'm gonna chat to you guys in a bit and wish everyone the best in their trading this week. And then yeah, that's pretty much it, guys, and peace out.